Hello and welcome to episode 134 of the Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam.
I'm Sahil.
And I was just at a minor league game today, Norfolk Tides versus Worcester Red Sox, the WooSox. And, as much of a travesty as it is that they left Pawtucket, I got to say the new stadium's really nice, and I saw some good baseball.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I'm jealous that you were able to go. I think you told me you saw Heston Kjerstad, Homer, and what you also saw Nick Sogard, I believe. Like, fuck.
Yeah,
I
Nick
want
Sogard
Nick
was
Sogard.
there. Bradley Zimmer was there. Um, yeah, obviously the Orioles prospects, but I gotta say, who impressed me was David Hamilton. I know he's been owned in this league. He's been on and off of various top 100s, but he's quick. He stole a base and he got out of a rundown a second time, and then he hit a long home run. He had 3 hits, I think. So he's David Hamilton.
Damn, looks like somebody ought to pick him up.
Maybe no, no, I won't, but maybe there's productive major leaguer there.
Yeah, maybe. I think you never know some of these prospects. It's like playing the stock market. Sometimes, their stock's up and things look good. Sometimes it goes down a little bit. And then you buy them there and they end up being productive. This could be one of those situations, but he's an interesting one for sure. I am bummed out for you though. You did watch the Norfolk Tides today, and then after the game, they announced that Jackson Holliday is being promoted to AAA. So if you had been able to go just a week later, you would have been able to see him. But nonetheless, still some awesome prospects you were able to watch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Bummer that Holiday wasn't there. And Cedane Rafaela wasn't there either, but saw some good guys, and I also saw Bobby Dahlbeck strike out 4 times.
My God, some things never change. Whether he's in the majors.
Was Dahlbeck drafted in our league? Was he
Uh,
drafted in our league?
that's a good question. Let's look
Let's
this one
see.
up.
Got it up right now. He was not drafted in this league. I will say, going into this game, he had like a 980 OPS in AAA, so he had been killing it. But Bobby Dahlbeck undrafted in our league. Michael Chavis, who I often confuse him with, was drafted in the 29th round. 2 picks before Sixto Sanchez. That 29th round. And we're getting way off track. 29th round, I don't know if there was a good pick in it. The best pick of the bunch was Max Kepler, I suppose.
Yeah,
Been a productive major leaguer.
maybe Matt Manning turns into something.
Maybe he's the only one still owned by his original team.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think speaking of the 29th round, Chase Anderson was on a roster today, and I think it's hilarious that
yeah,
he
we'll get into the reasons why Chase Anderson was on a roster today shortly. Um,
what
uh,
wasn't Brian Dunsing, I feel like strangely like for your team, like had like a key hold or save or something at one point, and
we
what.
didn't have any key anything that year. Dunsing was coming off of a fantastic year, and Duncan had written an article about how great he was. We took a flyer on him, and he posted a 7.6 ERA in 2018.
Oh God. Not everybody can predict the Christian Yelich MVP before it happens.
No, we cannot. Yeah, but we have a jam-packed episode to get to. We're going to talk through the matchups. We are going to talk through, more importantly, the playoff matchups. It's the end of the regular season. Regular season is over. Playoffs are coming up. So we're going to preview the 2 first-round matchups. And then we have a guest coming up later. Andrew will be on the show. First-time playoff attendee. He's going to be on talking about his upcoming matchup with Erik, getting thrown straight into the fire there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, shout out to Andrew for making his first ever playoffs. Congratulations to the other 5 playoff teams as well. And congratulations to the 6 teams that were eliminated. It is a bummer that You were not able to make the playoffs, but I hope you had fun this season nonetheless. I know
Yeah.
I always have fun every season we get to play in this league. So
Yeah, but you've made the playoffs every year.
yeah, but it's still fun nonetheless. Uh, I'd like to think at least.
I agree. No, it's a ton of fun. But yeah, do you want to talk about anything before we dive into these matchups, or do you want to recap these so we can preview the playoffs?
No, let's just dive right in.
Let's start with mine, I suppose, because it ended in an. Are we going to call this an upset? I was the higher seed, but it feels like an upset.
Uh, I think you two are so closely ranged where I wouldn't call it really an upset one way or another as much as like one like very good playoff team beat another very good playoff team. But yeah, it certainly feels like Erik has been the better team as of late, and you know I picked him to win.
Yeah, no, I did too. Erik had won 10 straight. He started his 10-game winning streak with a win over me, and he ends his 10-game winning streak with a loss to me. So funny that comes full circle. I said in the chat, no, this is the best rivalry in the league. We have each of the last 3 seasons now. I have won, or he's beaten me in the first matchup, and I've beaten him in the second matchup. Uh, Also, in each of the last 2 seasons, we met in the playoffs. If we were to meet in the playoffs this year, it would have to be in the finals because we're on different sides of the bracket, and that would be a ton of fun. But yeah, no, I feel, hey, I got my signature win. It finally happened. I finally did it. I got a great win over a great team. Erik played pretty well. And, I finally put together a good Sunday. My team hit 5 homers on Sunday, 6 homers. Was Rengifo the fifth or the sixth? I think he was
5 home runs on Sunday with 11 ribbies.
11 ribbies, 10 runs. I needed every last one of those. The on base was low. I was at the end of the day, Tuesday, my on base percentage was like 440, which is really absurd. Couldn't keep that up the whole week, but I had a great Sunday. I was trailing going into the day Sunday, but I mounted a comeback. Tyone had 7 strikeouts for me that were really crucial. He was just a last minute stream because he was facing the Reds, and the Reds had, going into this game, not scored multiple runs off of a starting pitcher in 2 weeks. They had been dreadful the first 5 innings. They've scored like the first 5 innings of the last 10 games, they've scored like combined 9 runs, or no, combined like 6 runs. So it's just been bad. I thought Tyone would continue that streak. Tyone pitched poorly, but still was able to get enough strikeouts for me to win. The win was only possible because George Kirby kind of got blown up today, Sunday.
Not
But
only that, I think he had another start this week either pushed back or I don't think he got scratched early this week. I don't think he pitched twice what like he was supposed to. I think he was supposed to pitch against Oakland to start the week. Or if not Oakland, it was like a really juicy matchup he was supposed to have.
yeah, I guess I got lucky there, but I guess if he had started earlier in the week, then he wouldn't be starting this game. So it all
He was lined up for a 2 start. So he was going to pitch like Monday and then pitch today.
gotcha. Well, Erik had to bench Maeda on
Yeah,
Sunday anyway, so he would have had to bench a second guy
right.
today. Yeah, either way, that would have been 14 starts. But no, I feel great. I pitched well. I had like a sub 2.5 ERA most of the week, and then Tyone kind of biffed that. But it's still a really respectable 3.32. I left 4 home runs on my bench. I would have had 25 home runs had I played my lineup right, including 2 homers from DJ Stewart on the bench and 1 from Jeff McNeil, 1 from Wilson Contreras. So I really did not play my lineup well. That would have been a weekly home run record for me. Instead, I have to settle for 21 homers, which is still great, but it would have been really frustrating if my lineup decisions had cost me this matchup. I will say, looking down my team, great week from Alec Boehm, a couple of homers, 360 OBP. Great week from Contreras. Great week from Yoshida, who's bouncing back. He had a rough first couple weeks of August, last couple weeks of July, but he's bounced back. And yeah, I'm going to give my matchup MVP, however, with a shout out to Nimmo and with a shout out to Juan Soto. I'm going to give it to Luis Rengifo, who hit 3 home runs. He put the matchup kind of out of reach with his final home run Sunday night. He had a 407 OBP, drove in 7 runs. And, he's another guy I picked up as kind of like a flyer type guy, was phenomenal, and then kind of slumped a little bit in the middle of the season, or really slumped a bit the first couple weeks of August, and then he's back to hitting, and I'm really excited for him.
Yeah, no, good for him. He's had an awesome week. It's been a bright spot for an Angels season that has not had too many bright spots. So good for him. And yeah, good for you for pulling out the win. I don't really have much to add. We'll talk about this a bit later when we talk about the playoffs, but this officially cements you as a 3 seed and Erik as the 4 seed. You just needed a win or a tie to make that happen, and you were able to win. So congrats.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll quickly mention Erik had some great performances too. Great performance from Teoscar Hernandez. Great performance from Marcelo Zuna. Christian Walker missed a couple games. Missed Sunday's game, but then pinch hit. It seems like he's kind of dealing with some nagging things. So I got lucky there. I feel like I got kind of lucky in a lot of ways this week. I was able to pounce on some difficult things from Erik that but I definitely had some fortune, like with Christian Walker missing time, and what we were saying about the Kirby stuff. But I will say he had a fantastic week from the Jeep, who would have been his matchup MVP. The Jeep went deep 3 times this week. Stung a little bit every time. And I guess just last thing, you got a great start from Tyler Glasnow and Chris Sale as well.
No, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Anything else you'd like to add, or do we want to switch over to my matchup?
Yeah, let's switch on over. You had you did your thing where you were losing all week, and then you somehow pulled out some bullshitty categories on Sunday.
Yeah, remember a couple of weeks ago when I was playing you, and I was like, it felt like that meme where, like, at the beginning of the week, you're like, oh, nice, my team's playing, and then in the middle, you're like, I'm gonna kill myself, and then at the end, it's like, oh, nice, I won. It was like that matchup, but on steroids. Unlike when I played you, I don't think there was any point where I led throughout the week at the end of the day, other than today. I'm a little baffled by Ruthvik's decision not to make more than one ad and not to do a little bit of streaming. I mean, it really wouldn't have mattered. He was pretty much locked into the 6th seed anyway. But I know for pride purposes, I think he would have liked to have beaten me. But I was able to pull out a 7-5 win after it looked like I was going to lose. I had a lot more at stake. A loss would have dropped me to the 2 seed, but I was able to hang on to the 1 seed. Fantastic offensive week, 59 ribbies, 62 runs, 22 home runs, ties my record. That is now the 4th one of my offensive records and 5th record overall that I have either tied or set in the last 4 weeks. So my team's been putting up some really nice performances overall. And some just really awesome individual player performances. Offensively, I mean, Mookie Betts just won the NL Player of the Month. He was awesome again this week. 452 OBP, 3 homers, 6 ribbies. Maxim Muncy had 2 homers and 8 ribbies with a 357 OBP. Um, uh, Adley had a key 2-run double today that broke the RBI tie and ended up giving me a 2 RBI lead, which was enough to win there. On the pitching side, Kyle Bradish did his thing. He's been so awesome. I don't think he's getting the love that he deserves, but he posted yet another quality start. Braxton Garrett has been awesome since I got him. He got yet another quality start. Garrett Cole, Brandon Woodruff also put up quality starts. Max Fried shoved against the Dodgers, 7 shutout innings with 10 strikeouts. Shout out JP Sears. I streamed him and he pitched 6 shutout innings. But my matchup MVP has to go to a guy I've been rooting for all year, knowing that this was going to happen. I think he's been one of the greatest stories over the past month. I mean, I know naming the matchup MVP is your purview, but I think this is where you were going with this, Cam. Trey Turner.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He completely took over this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I do not like win this matchup without him. 6 home runs, 14 ribbies, 2 steals. He hit a home run in every single game he played this week, but Sunday's game. He is on fire right now. He's risen to his OPS is up over 100 points from where it was when he got that ovation on August 4th. Tomorrow will make exactly a month since then. And the most important part to me too is the underlying stats are backing this up. He's making better swing decisions. He's hitting the ball harder. I think Nick Castellanos, I don't know if you saw the video this week where Castellanos was talking about Turner. He was like, well, the talent has been there the whole time. He's like, it's just a matter of him getting comfortable. And Turner now looks very comfortable in Philly. And you know, I think as long as he keeps this up, I think he's going to continue to hit. And this is the 5-tool player I thought I was going to get when I traded for him last year, when he finished 5th in the player rater last year and was like one of the top overall picks in redraft leagues this year. So I'm very happy with how this has played out this week. And if he keeps this up, I mean, my offense is going to be dangerous in the playoffs. So just wanted to give Trey Turner some love.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Both of your teams really did not pitch very well. You had a rough start from Nola. You had 2 bad starts from Zach Gallen. Maybe putting that Cy Young in doubt. I don't know.
Yeah, it was the Dodgers and the Orioles this week. I think this was the first time all year he's had back-to-back starts where he's given up more than 3 earned. I think the Orioles broadcast was saying. I'm not super worried, but I'm glad it happened this week and not in the playoffs. I think he'll bounce back.
Yeah, no, very fair. On Ruthvik's side, he had a not so great start from Barrios. Most of his starters pitched fine, but his bullpen looked pretty terrible.
Every time this week, like one of his starters would pitch really well, and I'd be like, "Oh God damn it! Like this is gonna be good for ERA and WHIP." And then like one of his bullpen guys would come in, even if they give up like a run, next thing I know, like that ERA is jumping, that WHIP's jumping. I'm like, all right, I saw the shot. But yeah, I think only one of his relievers didn't give up a run this week, and that was Evan Phillips. Not even in a save or a hold opportunity, but the rest of them kind of struggled.
Yeah, and this is the type of thing that's not like, I don't expect this to be an issue going forward. I think he's got a fine bullpen there, but it just kind of happens sometimes.
No, exactly. Yeah, I don't think it's a huge long-term issue. And also, too, these are like 1 or 2 appearances that can really skew it, right? You know, Kimbrel gave up 3 runs this week, but he still had 2 saves. So, you know, there's just 1 bad appearance out of 3, right? It's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, both your teams hit well. And Ruthvik is going to be facing me in the playoffs. So it's going to be an exciting one.
Yeah, shout out to him in the stolen base department too. He got 16 stolen bases. That ties the league record that Alex had set earlier this year. So, and another fun fact, Ruthvik and I set our all-time steals records in the week that we were playing each other, and we did it in the week that we had lost to each other. So, little interesting how that played out. And then also with me beating Ruthvik, I beat every single team this year, and I believe I am the only team to beat every single team this year so far. So playoffs can change that, but very, very exciting feat for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But we've talked about our matchups a lot. I think we can breeze through most of these, but the one other one that's the most interesting is one that is not between two playoff teams. It is the Tank Bowl between EBO and Yuki. EBO came out the winning team, as in the team that scored more points, that won more categories, but Yuki is the winner as he now has the better lottery odds in what may be the final lottery ever.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. So Yuki and EVO were playing for who would get the 20% versus 10% lottery odds. Yuki will get the 20%, but EVO will also have 20% from Daniel and Matt's pick that I traded them. So they'll have a total of a 30% chance of getting the number one overall pick. But you're right, this could be the last lottery ever. And I think that's what we wanted to talk about here. The matchup is whatever, but you I guess I proposed a new system in the chat that garnered a lot of support, and why don't you go ahead and explain it, since you were the one who kind of introduced us to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'll start out here by giving matchup MVP. Let's just kind of go through the basic stuff. Matchup MVP I will give to Joe Ryan. He had a good start. He was really the only person on either team who had a good start. I will give matchup least valuable player, because that's what these teams were really looking for. Matchup least valuable player goes to Patrick Sandoval, who faced Oakland. He had a cakewalk of a matchup against Oakland, could have tied quality starts, but instead he gave up 5 runs in 3 2/3 innings and helped blow up Yuki's ERA. So matchup least valuable player goes to Patrick Sandoval, who I had no idea was even on Yuki's team.
Funny enough, I almost streamed Sandoval because he was going against the A's. It was like between him and JP Sears, and and Cole Irvin, and I had a weird gut feeling that like Sandoval was just not going to pitch well, even though it was Oakland, and I went with Sears, and Sears was the only one of the 3 to post a quality start. So, yeah, I'm glad he ended up being Yuki's least valuable player instead of tanking my ratios, and which I think I might have lost with if I had made
Oh,
that.
I'm sure you would have, yeah.
Uh, I would have, okay, so I would have tied Ruthvik, so I still would have been a 1 seed, but I would have lost. I wouldn't have won. I would have tied.
But anyway, yes, this is the main reason we're focusing on this matchup so much is this may be our final lottery ever. We kind of, we were talking through this being a tank bowl and trying to talk through, how can we avoid incentivizing teams to, in a matchup like this, they want to lose. They don't want to win. And what I had seen before, this is something that I saw online someone does in their fantasy hockey league, so I can't claim credit for it. But what they do in their hockey league is the top draft picks are the top pick in the draft goes to the team with the most wins after being eliminated, and then it goes down 1 through 6 there, most wins after being eliminated. And I feel like that it kind of takes a second to wrap your head around, but once you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Like, yeah, the teams that get eliminated first have the most chances to win games after being eliminated. So it kind of incentivizes teams that get eliminated early. They have the better chance of the first pick, but it also keeps teams that are out of it wanting to keep winning, like, for example, if you're eliminated with 7 weeks to go and you go 0-7, and another team is eliminated with 2 weeks to go and you go 2-0, then that team gets the better draft pick. I don't know. It feels like it kind of solves a couple issues at once here, and I'm excited for to see if that passes this offseason, and we can. It'll be tough to track in real time, but it'll, if anything, it'll give us some more content to talk about.
No, I agree. I think it solves a lot of the tanking issue, right? I mean, I think it was pretty awkward for EBO and Yuki to have the way they had to play each other this week. I mean, I'll shout out, give them a shout out as to like, yeah, they tanked, but like, they, still put together, real lineups and stuff. So,
Well, EBO purposely streamed two bad pitchers on Friday to try and tank their ERA.
right, exactly. So, but that's not a lot of fun. Or, the flip side too is it's like, hey, we're playing a playoff team, in the second to last week, and there's something that's really going to affect the playoff odds, right? And oh wait, we're winning after Saturday, or like, hey, it's a super close matchup. No, 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 no. Like we can't put together a good lineup, right? And that might be a little unfair compared to like, hey, like, another playoff team played that tanking team in like week 3 and they were still trying, right? So I think it eliminates that. I think generally in any league, the more teams you have trying to win at one time, the better. So you're right. I think it gets rid of that, tanking incentive. And I think it makes things more interesting. I think that it'll keep people more engaged throughout the season. You're not going to see people just tune out, especially right after the trade deadline for some of these rebuilding teams, because they've done their heavy lifting for the season, which is to acquire some of these young guys at the deadline, and then it really doesn't matter what happens afterwards. So I'm all for it. I think it took a couple people were kind of like, hey, it took them like 5-10 minutes to read through it. And once they read through it, they were like, yeah, this is great. I think Sully was really the only one to voice any major opposition to it. And I think his logic was basically like it would encourage tanking at the beginning of the season, but I don't really think that's the case. I mean, even looking at Daniel and Matt this year, right? They were coming off the worst season in the league last year. I think they won 2 games all of last year, and they still made a number of win now moves in the offseason. I mean, they went out, they got George Springer, they got Hunter Renfroe, right? So, they still had their first round pick at the time. They didn't just pack into town where like, hey, we're going to tank. They still went out and made moves. So, I don't really see a downside to this, and especially with our league, how active we are, and how we would go about tracking it, and how we have the podcast, we talk about it. Like, I think it's good. And I'm excited for it. If it does pass, which
Yeah, no, getting definitely feels like there's momentum behind it. I think, yeah, there's not going to be more tanking at the start of the season than there was. I don't think this really changes the calculus for any tanking team. But yeah, no, we'll see how that goes. We haven't, I realized it's way harder to try and calculate this retroactively than I had anticipated. So we did not calculate what the lottery odds, or rather what the under the system top picks would be, but maybe next week we will.
yeah, maybe next week this could be a post playoff thing as well when we have a little more time. We'll figure it out. But yeah, that's definitely something I would like to track
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
Yeah, but anything else we want to discuss here? If not, there's one more matchup that really stood out to me, that there's some interesting things I want to point out.
Yeah, let's talk about that last one.
Yeah, so this is another matchup that you're probably not thinking like, oh, this is a big matchup that we should be talking about. It's Daniel and Matt v. Conor. Unlike EBO versus Yuki, there wasn't even playoff spot odds at risk here. In fact, I don't think either team owns their first round pick. I know Daniel and Matt do not, and I believe that Jake owns Connor's first round pick. He does. But Daniel and Matt won 10-2 or 10-2, swept the offensive categories, won all the pitching categories, but strikeouts and saves. Double-digit categories. You want to guess how many times they've won double-digit categories in league history before this?
6 times.
Once before this.
Once before this.
Have to go all the way back to week 5, 2019. They played Conor and won 10 categories. And believe it or not, they started that season 7-3. It is hard to believe now. It's one of those things where like I chatted you like one morning this week and I was like, hey, like this kind of feels like two different leagues, right? Like the podcast like pre-COVID era and then like the podcast like post-COVID era feels like two completely different leagues. And I feel like we just forget about stuff that happened at the beginning. They started that season 7-3. They didn't make the playoffs, but they started that season 7-3. They beat Conor 10-2 in week 5, 2019. It was the only other time that this team has won double-digit categories in league history. That's wild. And that is literally the only reason I wanted to spend any time on this matchup. I mean, as it was, Daniel and Matt won 10-2. This didn't really change anything in terms of the standings or anything, but my God, that's a wild stat to me.
Yeah, and here's another wild stat. You missed this, but Conor has set the league record for worst ERA in a single week. 8.416, breaking the old record, which was owned by Yuki. Actually, earlier this year, Yuki set the record, and Conor has broken it again this year. He now has the record for the best ERA in a single week and the worst ERA in a single week.
Oh God! And he almost broke his the single week anti-record for WHIP, which he owns from week 9 in 2019. So he now owns the best ERA in WHIP and the worst ERA in WHIP records. That's amazing.
Yeah, what a weird up and down swing this team has had throughout its history, and it's going to end up 8-12. So the 7th seed this year, but quite a few games out of the 6th seed. But yeah, the jury hit pretty solidly. I'm going to give matchup MVP to Nolan Jones, a youngster who's been really solid for them. And this week he had a homer, scored 5 runs, stole 3 bases with a 4.23 OBP.
Yeah, no, Nolan Jones has come on really nicely, and I know what they're finishing 5-16. This is 3 more wins than they had last year, so that is awesome. But there are definitely some young bats on this team that I am intrigued by, and there's definitely some pieces here I think as a continue this rebuild. But congratulations to these teams on finishing out their season. Are we ready to go on to the next matchup, or anything else you'd like to say here?
Yeah, no, let's do it. Let's breeze through the last couple here so we can get into the playoffs. We talk about Andrew v. Alex.
Yeah, Andrew beat Alex 8-4. This one was like kind of close all week. Alex hung around. Andrew had a really good offensive day on Sunday, including 7 steals today, which is crazy. But EVO also, I think, had 7 steals on Monday. So just kind of a crazy steals week from a couple teams. But Andrew was able to pull away after maybe looking like this could be a low-key quiet upset. This doesn't affect the standings for either team, but good for Andrew to finish out the season strong. So especially in the pitching side, 7 quality starts, 7 holds, 86 strikeouts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really solid pitching week for him.
And for Alex too, I'll add a 2 ERA even and a 0.95 WHIP.
Yeah, no, great pitching matchup for both teams. Not so great hitting matchup for either team, although Andrew had a good OBP. Yeah, no, great way to finish off the season for Andrew pitching wise going to the playoffs. Good start from Brandon Williamson, who's really come along strong. Javier Assad, the ass man, struck out 7, went 8 innings. Got into trouble a lot, but always found really the Reds ran into 7 outs on the base pads that game, something like that. So he had some help, but he still went 8 innings.
Is anything going right for the Reds right now?
No, No, they just split a series with the Cubs right now, so that's could have been worse, but it's been a rough time. Uh, John Gray struck out 17 for Andrew, but also had a rough start in there. For Alex pitching wise, great start for Logan Gilbert. Great start for Bryce Elder. One great start that is, and then one not so great start. Great start for Cole Reagans, who, I mean, yeah, has just put together just great start after great start since getting called up by the Royals. He's an interesting guy for sure. Uh, Brian Wu was okay. Bobby Miller was okay. So yeah, good. A lot of great jobs done by these young pitchers on Alex's team, I gotta say. Matchup MVP for Andrew. Let's give it to Justin Steele. He probably had the best individual pitching matchup, pitching start of anyone on that team.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Definitely a good start from Steele. Asmian also had a good start. I think an argument could have been made for him as well.
All right, last matchup here. Jake had a convincing win over Anthony. A lot of categories ended up tight, particularly on the pitching side. Anthony, he pitched really well in his final matchup of the year. Got to hand it to him.
He did, yeah. I kind of pitched like we were thinking he would all year with the pitching staff that he had. Unfortunately, it didn't consistently come together throughout the season, but it did come together this last week. Even a lot of the hitting categories were close. He was down one or two in a bunch of the hitting categories going into Sunday. Jake was able to pull away slightly here, but Anthony made sure it was competitive and made sure that Jake couldn't just rest on his laurels for most of the week here. And but like you said, Jake was still able to pull out that 9-3 win.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We'll start here with Jake's team. Matchup MVP is going to be Blake Snell, who pitched 13 shutout innings, struck out 17. Really just put together a fantastic week.
I still do not get how this blueprint works for him. Like he is leading the league in walks, but he is also like leading the league in ERA.
It's super weird. I don't know how he's doing it either. I don't know if any of us, including Jake, expect him to continue this, but
No,
hey,
all these podcasts or all these like fantasy analysts always talk like, hey, like Blake still does this. He does this for like 4 weeks, 6 weeks in the middle of the season, and it looks great, but it's not something you want to be on the entire time. And if you look at the underlying stats, it's like he's got a 250 ERA, but he's got like a 396 xERA, a 369 FIP, a 364 xFIP. Like it doesn't look sustainable. The walk rate is even higher than it was last year. I think you're going to argue he pitched better than he did, better last year than he did this year. He's just actually getting the results this year. And I don't get it. It truly baffles me. He's also getting innings this year, which he has not gotten the past 2 years. He had 128 and 2/3, 50 and 107 the 4 years before this. He has 155 this year. I truly do not get it.
yeah, it's weird. He's kind of the anti-Padres because everyone else on that team, it feels like the underlying stats look really good, but they're just not performing, not getting just kind of getting BABIP'd as a team or getting unlucky. And Snell's the one exception in the other direction. But speaking of,
As an
yeah,
aside, this truly feels like the guy that Jake's going to sell high on this offseason. Like he sold high on Alcantara after last year, and we saw how that's worked out beautifully for him. I have a feeling someone's going to buy Snell way too high.
I think you're probably right. Speaking of Padres starters, he had two quality starts from Seth Lugo, who pitched really well. And then hitting wise, Real Muto was good, and Jordan was absurdly good too. Yeah, and Anthony had a good start from actually a couple of good starts from Reese Olson, which Reese Olson's lines, and let me just make sure these aren't backwards. He had 4 1/3 innings with 10 Ks, and then he had 7 innings with 1 K. Am I reading this right?
You are reading that right. It's bizarre. He also walked 4 in that start that he had 10 strikeouts. And that was part of the reason he only went for it a third. And then he didn't walk a single batter in the start where he only got one strikeout. So it's baffling. He was an interesting midseason pickup for Anthony there, kind of right after he traded Braxton Garrett. He used the pick he got to go get Reese Olson. So um he's kind of the opposite of Snell here. Got a FIP and XFIP that are a lot lower than the ERA. Curious to see how next season goes for Reese Olson.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's looking good. Could be a very good acquisition for Anthony this year. Yeah, that's about all I have to say about this matchup, the final matchup of the regular season.
Yeah, hard to believe it is over, but that means it is time for us to discuss the playoffs. But before we do that, there is one fun fact that I'd like to share that I meant to share at the beginning of the podcast, and I think that you would appreciate it, Cam.
Oh boy.
So I just learned today that the Orioles have a prospect whose first name is Trey, same last name as our buddy that we mentioned last week, or Diamondbacks reliever. But he does not pronounce it McDuff. He actually pronounces it McGo. So his name is Trey McGo.
So there's a Trey McGo, unrelated, I'm sure. Although,
Yeah, they are unrelated. I had to go back and Google just to make sure, but they are unrelated. But we had Trey McGo and Scott McDuff.
that's wild. Trey McGo and Scott McGuff.
Yes. And that is how I wanted the regular season to end.
Okay, that's officially closing off the regular season with Trey McGo. Let's talk about these playoff matchups. Round one, here we go. Me versus Ruthvik, Erik versus Andrew. Couple scary matchups. All four of these teams. I don't know. Some years there's been a weak team in the playoffs. There is no weak team in the playoffs this year.
No, yeah, I think all six teams have a very legitimate chance of winning this year. I wouldn't be surprised how this shakes out. All of these teams have looked pretty unstoppable at different stretches throughout the season. And for the most part, I think every team's matchup against each other playoff team has been a very competitive matchup. Maybe not the 12-0 win I had over Andrew, but the rest of them have been pretty competitive overall. So it's going to be, my God. I mean, look at my matchup against Ruthvik just now. This is the 1v to 6 seed, and Ruthvik was winning every day at the end of every day but today. So this is going to be a fun playoffs. But also one that's probably going to raise my heart rate and probably going to cause me to lose multiple years of my life just with the stress. So I hope it's worth it.
Yeah, no, I agree. This year it really feels like any of these six teams can win. And I've never felt like that. And especially the top four teams, any of them any of these teams can beat any of these other teams. Maybe I can't beat you, but no, I was beating you on Sunday in our most recent matchup.
We split last year, right? And then
We did split last year, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So
And maybe even the year before too.
in any event, yeah. So just to lay out all the seeding, just all at once here. Cam mention the matchups, but the seeding did not change from what it looked like at the end of last week. So there were no surprises. I am the top seed for the fourth time in our 6 seasons in league history. Jake is the 2 seed. You are the 3 seed. You are playing 6 seed Ruthvik, so you two are on Jake's side of the bracket. And then Erik is the 4 seed playing 5 seed Andrew. They're on my side of the bracket. So I'll be playing the winner there, and Jake will be playing the winner of you and Ruthvik.
Yeah. Gonna be interesting. Me and Ruthvik, winner faces Jake. And Andrew, if he can pull off the upset against Erik, has to immediately face you. So that's not what he wants either. But which of these 2 playoff matchups do we want to dive into first? We're going to spend a little bit of time on each of them.
Yeah, we're going to spend quite a bit of time. Let's see. We started off talking about your matchup versus Erik. So why don't we talk about you last this time? Why don't we talk about Andrew v. Erik first? Then again, I guess we talked about Erik first too, but whatever. Let's start with Andrew v. Erik.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So okay. Let's start with Erik and Andrew. Let's start with the pitching matchups because I think this is a lot of what's gonna, dictate this matchup. I mean, Andrew's coming off a fantastic pitching week. And he's gonna have a lot of starters going early on. So he's got 3 starters going on Monday, all lined up for 2 starts here. So he's got Justin Steele going against the Giants. He's got Grayson Rodriguez going to the Angels, and then Pablo Lopez pitching at Cleveland. I think all of those are very good pitching matchups. On Tuesday, he's got Tanner Bibby versus Minnesota, Reed Detmers versus Baltimore, and Chris Bassett revenge game. He goes back to Oakland. I don't know how I feel about that Detmers Baltimore start, but the other 2 I think are really good matchups. Wednesday, he's got Hyun-Jin Ryu at Oakland. That's another really good matchup. If he keeps the Assman starts on Thursday versus Arizona. Let's see. Saturday, he has John Gray against Oakland. He has a lot of pitchers against Oakland this week. And then Justin Steele pitching against the Diamondbacks. And then Sunday, he'd have Pablo Lopez against the Mets, Reed Detmers against Cleveland, and Ranger Suarez against the Marlins. That's 13 starts in total, so he's going to bench one of those starts. Honestly, if I'm him, it'd probably be that Reed Detmers versus Baltimore start. But other than that, I don't think any of the starting pitchers that he has going has like a bad matchup. I mean, there's some of them that are tougher than others. The guys who go to pitch against Arizona, that's a lineup that can put up some damage with, Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte and Christian Walker. But, it's not like any of these teams or any of his pitchers are going to like Atlanta or the Dodgers or the Rangers or the Astros. So he's got some quantity to go, some quality matchups for his pitchers this week.
Yeah, no, I agree. Really solid. Set up
Yeah.
for him, yeah. And that's
Yeah.
what you need to beat Erik.
Oh yeah. I mean, we know that Erik's team, his pitching staff especially, is built around kind of just throwing as many starting pitchers as you can against the wall, and then maybe the bullpen categories are a little ancillary. I think he puts a little more emphasis in holds. He gets the occasional save. Yeah, and the more starts Andrew can put up against Erik, the better. Let's look at Erik's starters now. Erik gets Corbin Burns as a 2 start, so he starts at Pittsburgh on Monday. He's got Kyle Hendricks. He picked up Kyle Hendricks today, right before the Sunday matchup started. So clearly with an eye towards this week. Kyle Hendricks starts on Tuesday versus the Giants. Wednesday, Erik's got a doozy. So he's got Tyler Glasnow versus Boston, Michael Wacha versus Philly. That's not going to be the easiest of starts. Justin Verlander at Texas. So that's a hard lineup. Verlander's coming off a 6-inning, 6-earned start. So not his best. He's got Max Scherzer going against Verlander, actually. That's going to be a really good game, Texas v. Houston. But Scherzer's listed as day-to-day. He had forearm tightness in his last start against the Twins on Friday. So that's going to be he threw a bullpen session on Sunday. But it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he actually makes that start or if it gets pushed back, if maybe they don't let him pitch as deep as they'd want him to. So that one's going to be interesting to watch. On Saturday, Erik gets Chris Sale against the Orioles and Kenta Maeda against the Mets. And then on Sunday, he gets Corbin Burns at the Yankees and Kyle Hendricks against the Diamondbacks. I believe when I added that up, that also that added up to 11 starts. So both teams have a pretty full complement of starts this week. Any thoughts about either of these teams' pitching staffs?
No, I think it seems like Andrew's got the better matchups this week. I like Eric's pitchers better in general,
Yeah.
but yeah, if Andrew can sneak a couple pitching quantity categories, he'll be in okay shape, but he really needs to do that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Erik definitely has the better starting pitchers overall, but Andrew does have the better matchups. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays it out. I mean, it plays out. That being said, like um I don't think one team has a significant advantage over the other here. I think these are two relatively even pitching staffs overall, and I think what might kind of eliminates some of the difference in quality of Erik's starting pitchers versus Andrew's starting pitchers is I think that Andrew has a much better bullpen. Um, and I think that could kind of help maybe make some of the difference in ERA and whip and strikeouts. I think Andrew should probably be able to take saves just with Diaz um, and Romano coming out of the bullpen there. And, I think holds will be an interesting category to watch there. Because I know Erik puts a little bit more emphasis on there, although Erik puts a little more emphasis on there, but Andrew also has some quality guys. He does have Tanner Scott, who has moved into the closer's role for Miami with David Robertson getting demoted. So perhaps maybe Erik can at least make saves a little competitive. So that'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely see. I know Eric has been anti-save, but he can, I don't know, you don't want to just abandon a guy if you think he's going to get saves.
No, exactly. I don't think Erik's going to cut him or anything. I think the other thing you have to consider too, especially when you're cutting like a guy like that, is like my opponent can pick him up. Somebody else that might play next week might pick him up. And it's not like he's like devoid of value outside of saves. He's good for the ratio. So I mean, I can't imagine Erik's going to cut him.
Yeah, that's true. That's an important thing as well.
Right. Let's look offensively. So, Erik, obviously, William Contreras has been awesome for him recently. Did you know William Contreras is #1 in the player rater at catcher?
Is he really?
He is. I did not know that. Let's see. I'm pulling up 15-day rolling stats here for his players. He's got Jeep. The Jeep's been awesome recently. 4 homers, 8 ribbies, a 491 OBP the last 2 weeks, 17 runs. Joe Teoscar Hernandez has 20 RBIs in his last 15 games. By the way, these stats are not including today. If we're recording this tomorrow, the last 15 days would be inclusive of that, but ESPN has not put in today's game, so they're not including today's stats. Did you know Teoscar had 20 ribbies in the last 15 days? That's wild.
That's wild.
Marcell Ozuna, 8 home runs, 16 ribbies, a 500 OBP, and 16 runs in the last 15 days as well. So Erik has a few bats here that are really peaking right now. He has a few who aren't hitting so well. Zach Geloff only has a 258 OBP in the last 2 weeks, but he's got 2 home runs and 2 steals. Jose Ramirez only has a 267 OBP, although 3 home runs and 4 steals. Christian Walker is day to day, but he's been pretty well recently. So overall, I think like a solid group of bats here. But maybe some concern with some guys slumping. I don't know. How are you feeling about his offense?
I think it's been killing it lately. I'm not worried any amount.
That is true. I guess if you're looking at the overall numbers just this week, and you might have a better idea because you actually played him. I mean, 53 ribbies, 12 steals, a 352 OBP, 18 homers, 18 doubles. Like, yeah, I think you're right. Maybe I was selling it short here. If I look at the 7-day stats, I bet it's a little better. But yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, no, his past month has been fantastic offensively. I'm not worried.
All right, I stand a little bit corrected then. From Andrew's perspective, if we're just looking, I'll do the same thing. Let's look past 15 days. Bobby Witt, the OBP is not there, but 4 home runs, 4 steals. Mark Pena has been hot recently. He's got a 489 OBP, a homer, 8 ribbies. Kyle Schwarber has 7 home runs in the last 15 days. That comes with only 11 RBIs. He must be hitting a lot of solo shots. 426 OBP. Austin Hayes is heating back up again. He's got a 413 OBP. It's kind of the highlights here. He's got some other guys who are doing pretty solid, but it's kind of like Schwarber, Ian Happ as well, 354 OBP for 3 homers, 3 steals, 13 ribbies. Kind of like Schwarber and Happ and Witt kind of leading the charge here. He's notably missing Josh Young. He's a little less banged up on the offense than Erik is. Erik's missing Vinny P. He's out for the year, missing Wander. We know his situation. But Andrew's relatively healthy hitting wise, other than Josh Young, and I guess CJ Chrome. But I don't think CJ Chrome was doing much of anything this year. How are you feeling about Andrew's offense?
Yeah, no, I think he had not the best offensive week this past week, but I think both these teams are doing fine on offense. I'm not too worried either.
Is there one offense that you prefer kind of going into next week? I think
Erik's offense is looking better.
I think you're right as well. I do think it's going to be pretty close, though. I will note that Erik should be able to fill a full lineup on Monday. Andrew's probably going to come a batter or two short of that. As you all know, Monday and Thursday are the days when teams typically have their off days. And I think they'll be able to put a similar number of guys in their lineup on Thursday. Actually, I think Erik might be able to have a little more full of a lineup on Thursday. So that might give Erik a little bit of a leg up as well. But yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty close matchup overall. I have a hard time really differentiating these two teams in a substantial way. I have my opinions about who is better in certain aspects of their team, but I still think it's close.
Yeah, and I think Erik has had the better season overall, but I definitely think Andrew will put up a good fight and he's got a chance to win.
Yeah. Andrew overall has never beaten Erik before. So if he wants to beat Erik here, it would be his first ever win against Erik, and that would be a great time to do that. So but yeah, anything else we'd like to say about this matchup, or do we want to preview the next matchup?
Let's preview the next one, me versus Ruthvik.
Yeah, so I'll start with Ruthvik and kind of do that part, and then I'll let you talk about your teams. That sound good?
Sure.
All right. Ruthvik, similar to Andrew, has a really big slate of pitchers going on Monday, all with good matchups. So Logan Webb at the Cubs, Aaron Savali plays Boston, and Jose Barrios goes to Oakland. I think those are 3 matchups that are all pretty favorable for those pitchers. Tuesday, he's got Michael Lorenzen at San Diego. I don't feel great about that, especially the way that Lorenzen has been pitching recently. He's struggled a little bit since that no-hitter and coming over from the Tigers. Wednesday, he's got Mitch Keller going against Milwaukee. That Milwaukee offense doesn't scare me that much, and Mitch Keller has been dialed in recently after kind of a midseason slump. Doesn't have anybody going Thursday. Friday, he's got nobody going. Saturday, he's got Aaron Savale against Seattle. Kodai Senga pitches against Minnesota, and Alex Cobb pitches against the Rockies, but the game is in San Francisco. I like all of those matchups. I'm maybe a little concerned about Cobb after he struggled in today's start, but he did have an almost no-hitter early in the week. I wonder if he was just a little fatigued after throwing 131 pitches. in that game. And then that Sunday, he's got a 3-start. He's got Logan Webb going against Colorado, and that's an 8 p.m. game. So, you know how some of the dynamics go with these Sunday games or these Sunday night games, and maybe having the flexibility to bench someone if you know that you've won the rate categories or some of the other categories. So that could give Ruthvik a little bit of an advantage there. He's got Barrios going against Kansas City. That's a great 2-start for Barrios this week, Oakland and Kansas City. And then Jack Flaherty at Boston. He's currently slated to pitch on Sunday. So that is 11 starts total. I'll read off your pitching matchups, and then let's talk about each team's pitching staffs here. You have nobody pitching on Monday. On Tuesday, you have Framber Valdez going against Texas. That game's in Texas. Clayton Kershaw at Miami. Sonny Gray at Cleveland. I like 2 of those 3 matchups. Not excited about Framber's matchup. Zach Wheeler on Wednesday at San Diego. That could be tricky with some of their bats that they have. Thursday, you have Erod going at the Yankees. Friday, you have Jordan Montgomery going against Oakland. That's a good matchup. I'm assuming you're not keeping Jameson Taillon, so I'm not even going to mention who he's going against. Saturday, Charlie Morton goes against his old team, the Pittsburgh Pirates. And then on Sunday, you have Clayton Kershaw completing his 2-start week with a matchup at the Nationals, who I think low-key have been pretty decent against lefties recently, but it is Clayton Kershaw. Excluding Taillon, you have 8 starts total compared to Ruthvik's 11. Let's talk about these rotations here. How do you feel they stack up?
I don't know. I think I've definitely got the better top end guys than Ruthvik does, but the issue is I'm going to have to stream this week if I want to remain competitive. I may even have to do it early, so I'm not relying on guys at the end of the week, even though I'm sure I will be. Not everyone can be Paulo Orlando. My hero. Yeah, no, I think
Did you mean
I trust.
Did you mean Paulo Espino?
Paulo Espino, yes, Paulo Orlando there.
But I just heard the name Paulo Orlando like really recently, and I'm trying to remember the context. Never mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I trust my guys more, but I do think he has better quantity and better matchups than I do, so I'm going to have to work around that.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits that you are going to get, though, is that Ruthvik does have 3 of those guys going on Monday, and obviously he's still going to have 8 more starts after that. But that should give you a pretty decent idea, right? If the Cubs offense is able to blow up Logan Webb and maybe Aaron Savali, racks up a high pitch count, he really doesn't go deep into the game for some reason. Maybe you're feeling a little more confident about being like, hey, I don't necessarily have to stream, but I can just kind of rely on winning the ratios, and hey, maybe his strikeout numbers aren't going to be so high if he's getting some short starts. So, I think you're going to have the advantage of, maybe being able to see a little bit of that early on in the week, and that can help dictate your strategy. But I think you're right. You never want to go into a week with substantially fewer starts than your opponent. I think that it's going to make it a little trickier. And you kind of have your work cut out for you, in my opinion. It would be one thing if his pitchers had like insanely tough matchups, but I think if anything, some of your pitchers have the tougher matchups.
I agree. No, I have my work cut out for me there.
Yeah. On the reliever side as well, I know we mentioned earlier in the podcast he did struggle a little bit this week in that regard, but I do think he has the better bullpen and deeper bullpen overall. With Evan Phillips, Yohan Duran, Andres Munoz, who just won AL Reliever of the Month, and maybe he'll stream some holds, but I'm feeling pretty good about that relief staff compared to yours. Not that you don't have some good guys. I mean, Clay Holmes and Paul Sewald's a nice 1-2 punch, and you do have Hector Neris and Kendall Graveman as hold options as well. Gregory Santos too. So, but I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's probably not going to make a big difference either way. I like my guys in the bullpen, and I'm going to be streaming holds all week. So we'll see if I do that well or not.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is going to come down to streaming holds. I will note that Ruthvik did not put up a single hold this week against me, but he did rack up a bunch of saves. It kind of is what his strategy is. You were third in the league in holds. He was fifth, but you had 14 more. From a saves perspective, he was fourth with 98. And then there was a big drop off to where you were at seventh with 55. So, yeah, it might be one of those where you win holds, he wins saves. Let's talk about the hitting. Without really going deep into names, I think that it's kind of pretty obvious who we think is a better offense, but just to highlight a couple guys, I mean, Cal Raleigh's been awesome recently. 3 homers, 10 ribbies, 367 OBP the last 2 weeks. Luis Rengifo has been awesome, as you kind of highlighted. 472 OBP, 3 homers, 10 ribbies. Lindor, 351 OBP, 3 homers, 7 ribbies, 5 steals. Juan Soto, 383 OBP, 3 homers, 7 ribbies. He just keeps doing his thing. Aaron Judge, 8 homers, 11 ribbies, kind of a low OBP, but if you're hitting that many homers and ribbies, you're contributing. DJ Stewart, who could just be the guy who randomly pops out of nowhere and makes a difference in the playoffs, has 6 homers, 13 ribbies, and a 408 OBP the last 2 weeks. Former Oriole first-round pick who never quite panned out there, but he is panning out here.
Yeah, I left 2 homers from him on my bench earlier this week, but I will not be making that same mistake again.
No, I don't think you will. Let's talk about Ruthvik's offense quickly. He last 15 days stats, looking at some of these guys. Davis Schneider's been on a tear, and I think Ruthvik posted something in the chat that was like highest OPS in a player's like first 15 career games goes to Davis Schneider. He's got 4 homers, 11 ribbies, a steal, and a 543 OBP in the past 15 days. Ryan Mountcastle's been on a tear, 429 OBP, 2 homers, 9 ribbies. Anthony Santander is also on a burner, 5 homers, 14 ribbies with a 395 OBP. Mitch Garver has 4 homers and 4 RBIs. And of course, we can't forget Ronald Acuna, 5 homers, 12 ribbies, 8 steals, 409 OBP. I mean, looking like one of the MVPs of the league. And Rafi Devers, probably his second best hitter, 361 OBP, 2 homers, 7 steals over the last 2 weeks. So pretty solid group of hitters. Ruthvik's coming off a really good hitting week. I think I speak for both of us when I say I feel a bit better about your offense. I think it's a more consistent offense. But Ruthvik is also coming off a hot streak here offensively.
Yeah, I agree. His guys are hot, but I think my guys are hot too. And I think none of that matters for this week. It all depends on how, this week is a different week than last week.
I think you're right. But one thing I do want to ask specifically about your team. You, the last few weeks, have been operating with a short bench. You have made some cuts that maybe you would not have otherwise wanted to make to, have more available bench spots for healthy players, but you still have played 2 bench spots down. Maybe that's something that's worked in the regular season. I know last year you famously, or I'm probably the only one who remembers this, but you played a player down so you could stash Harrison Bader last year when I told you to cut him. And ironically, he's a red now. Hilarious to me. But how are you going to approach that? Or are you not ready to reveal your hand? I mean, by the time this episode comes out, we'll probably know. But
well, in my defense last year, Harrison Bader did come back before the finals, and he had a couple big stolen bases.
You were lucky it didn't matter in the semis that you burned a roster spot, but go on.
It's tough that teams have to burn a roster spot if their guys get hurt. No, it feels very unreasonable that teams should have to just play down a spot if their guys get hurt. That's not the case anywhere else in any location of polite society. If your guy gets hurt, or I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'd be like playing my hand, but I think there are one or two guys that could be cut if I uh if I feel like I need to have that spot.
Yeah, I'm curious whether that's something you do at the beginning of the week, or if you kind of look towards the end of the week and you're like, hey, I need this spot. And maybe it's like a cut you make on a Friday or Saturday. I certainly have my opinion for how you should handle it. I don't think you and I agree on how you should handle it. But I think that's definitely something that's going to be interesting to watch. As somebody who did play a player down last year when I had to carry Tatis on my roster, uh, it creates some complications for sure. So it'll be interesting to see how you navigate through that, whether you just eliminate that kind of disadvantage by cutting guys, or whether you try to get the best of both worlds and keep them and win your matchup. So
Yeah, no, we're definitely gonna see if maybe I'll need it, maybe I won't.
yeah,
It all depends.
yeah. And I think this kind of ends up similar to where we were at with Erik and Andrew, where yeah, I think your team on paper is probably a bit better than Ruthvik's team, but I think both of your teams, have played very well this year, and I think both of you are very, very capable of beating the other and advancing to the next round, and I wouldn't be surprised how it shakes out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Fully agree. All right. But yeah, that's enough talking about these matchups. We spent a long time on that. Let's pick them.
Yes. Before we pick those matchups, let's go over our the final week of our regular season pick'em. You and I both had the exact same picks last week. Did you pick Erik last week, or did I miswrite that? Or did you
I
pick
picked Erik.
You picked Erik? Okay, so we both picked Erik. For some reason, I could have sworn you picked yourself, but okay. We both had the exact same picks. We correctly predicted that me, and Jake, and Andrew would win. We incorrectly predicted everything else. We both picked Conor when Daniel and Matt won. We both picked Yuki when EVO won, and we both picked Erik when you won. So, we won 3-3 on the week. That puts you still 4 games ahead of me. I'm not going to subject us all to me trying to do math. I think that's best for everybody. In addition to picking the matchups, we have a little twist this week. You get to pick the score of the matchup as well. So, and I think we should do it where if you predict the correct score, you get an extra point. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that seems fine to me.
Okay. Uh, let's do it.
All right. I think that Erik will beat Andrew. I think this is going to be uh let's call it 8-4, an Erik win over Andrew. And I think I will beat Ruthvik 6-5-1.
Okay, I think Erik's gonna win. I think 8-4 is a good number. I'm gonna say 7-4-1 though. Now Ruthvik, if you're listening to this, you have spent quite some time over the past couple of weeks saying that we have not put enough respect on your team's name. You have been on a quite a tear to end the season, although you have now lost back-to-back matchups to me and Andrew. But before that, you had won 8 of your last 9, including wins against me and Andrew. There was only a loss to Erik in that stretch. But I'm gonna pick you here. Uh,
Ooh.
I I think it's gonna be 6-5-1. I think Ruthvik is going to be the first six seed to win a playoff matchup in the history of this dynasty league.
Wow. Interesting.
I think he's got the pitching.
All right. Well, we'll see about that. Yes, we both picked differently there. This episode is already probably 2 hours long. But we have more for you. We have an interview with Andrew coming up. Anything else we want to say before we dive into that?
I have one more question for you, and I clearly answered the question by not picking you. But in the preseason, when we did our preseason predictions, we made picks as to who would win the championship. I picked you. You picked Erik. Obviously, I'm not picking you because I picked Ruthvik to win. How do you feel about your pick of Erik? Would you change that now, or are you sticking by it if you had to repick it?
I'd be shocked if you don't win the league this year. I mean, you've just been steamrolling teams for the last 3 months. I would be shocked if you don't win.
Interesting. Okay.
And this isn't a slight against Erik. Erik's been playing really well too, but you are just kind of on another level. But then again, you were on another level in 2021. So
I think the difference between now and 2021 is 2021, I started the season really hot, and then the last 7 weeks played 500 ball. And I think this season I've won 9 straight to end and struggled a little bit in the middle of the season. So that's where I think the difference is. But my God, I think the competition is tougher than it was that year, and I'm not taking any of you for granted. In 2021, I thought 3 teams could win the league. I think all 6 teams can win the league this year.
yeah, no, I think that's definitely true. Yeah, and we're about to take a quick break, but we'll be back with one of those 6 teams who we definitely think can win the league. Making his first ever playoff appearance, it is Andrew. Reynolds wrap playoff rookies on the other side.
Yeah, no, we'll see you on the other side. All right, we are back here. Cam is back as he was before, and we got special guest Mazzucato Truther. How's it going, Mazzucato Truther?
Hey, who would ever doubt Frank Mozzicato? It's hard for me to say, but good to be on the pod. I feel like I've been on it a lot lately, so hopefully that's a decision based on the fact that my interviews are just garnering hundreds, thousands of likes, probably. So good business decision, I think, by you guys to bring me back.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it is. I think the viewers want to hear less of me and more of you. I have the tendency to ramble. You are more concise to the point. I know Cam for editing purposes, I'm sure likes that a bit better. But yeah, we have you on today. The other 5 teams in the playoffs have all made multiple playoff appearances. But this is your first playoff appearance. So first off, congratulations for making the playoffs for the first time. How does it feel?
It's good. I wasn't really expecting it going into the season. I knew I knew the team had a fighting chance. Everything looked good, and then right around when it got to about mid-May, it was like looking at the team, everybody was playing well. A lot of guys broke out. Austin Hayes looked great. Josh Young looked great. Um, and other guys weren't slumping. So, a couple tweaks along the way, but I'm really happy with how the team is doing. So, yeah, I don't know the highest of expectations, but I think this team could be sneaky if I get past Erik. I think it'd be interesting to see my chances at making a run.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah. I guess looking at your team, any surprise guys besides Hayes and Young that you picked up mid-season or anyone like that you really think has helped your team a lot?
Nolan Gorman, I think. I mean, he wasn't really projected to start this year. And even so, he came out. He's hit 24 home runs, put in 70, or driven in 70, hit a handful of doubles, and gotten on base at a reasonable amount. Been slumping the last couple weeks since he came back from an injury, so there's something probably still lingering that's hampering him. But I mean, he really had a great first half. Um, Adolis is hitting bombs. Ian Happ has been a great addition as well, and then pick up Jonah Heim has been driving in value as a util guy, and you don't usually see teams that roster two catchers making it too far. But Heim and Smith have been a great backstop tandem. Makes me feel like a real life team too, so I can rotate in two different catchers. So a little bit of realism there for you.
Yeah, no, I've been rocking the two catcher thing for a couple months now, and I'm fully on board with it. At least when you got two catchers hitting as well as your catchers or my catchers are. But yeah, with all that out of the way, how do you feel about your chances against Erik this week?
Well, I'm blessed with knowledge in that I know I've already got a great start from Justin Steele under my belt. It's hard. I didn't mean to call you out in the Slack saying, "Oh, bummer that I didn't get to play Cam." No, there's no hard feelings there. It's just looking at history. I was like, well, I've beaten Cam before, but I've yet to beat Erik. All things aside, it doesn't really matter. It's two good teams that I could have faced, and I ended up drawing Erik. So it'll be interesting for sure. He's a good manager. I'm kind of thankful that he doesn't have Shohei to pitch with, but hitting Shohei is another beast that I've got to deal with. So I don't expect to win steals, but I'm hoping my offense can keep up with his. And if I keep getting good pitching performances, you're likely to see a good week out of the Reynolds wrap. They could trademark a saying or something at the end of every win, just say that's a wrap.
Love that.
Oh,
That's a wrap.
Yeah, I mean, we talked earlier. Definitely, you have some really good pitching matchups here, and you definitely have the offense to stay competitive. So, even though you haven't beaten Erik before, I certainly think this is going to be a really good matchup, and I don't think Erik's taken for granted that he's going to beat you and advance to the next round, and I don't think any of us are thinking that either.
Yeah, no, I mean, Eric's just a consummate professional. He's good at what he does. He knows his team really well. And he's always a good guy to go against. Never hesitates to throw out the GGs. So it'll be a good matchup. I'm honored that my first playoff matchup could be against Erik. So, we'll see. Hopefully it can be a good one.
Absolutely. And again, you are off to a good start. But either way, this has been a very successful season. Looking forward, how do you see your team over the next few years?
Pretty good. I feel like, most of my guys are pretty young here. I gotta think about who my oldest bat is. Maybe it's Schwarber. And he's just having a weird year. No complaints, but he has more home runs than singles. He's taking a walk what feels like every other at bat or every other plate appearance. Still hitting 39 home runs. He might be the oldest guy. I love the offense going forward. Always got to add some tweaks, get the pitchers up to speed. But with Grayson Rodriguez, looks like he's finally starting to adjust in the majors. So I'm really loving that. Just got to get the guys coming up from the farm to be a little more consistent. And I think it's cool that, basically two pitchers that I thought were going to be surefire guys this year in Kyle Wright and Nick Lodolo were non-factors because they both got hurt really quickly. Yeah, Wright through 18 innings, Lodolo through 34. So I don't know, the fact that I was able to roster a competitive team without those guys probably says some good things for the future. So
And it seems like
yeah.
your pitching staff is really peaking right now too.
Yeah, everything's firing for a lot of these guys. Pablo Lopez has just been consistent all year. He's been probably my best pitcher all year. Really great to have him just lock down the QS every week. Yeah, Steele is firing, Grayson's firing, Tanner Bybee is firing. Reed Detmers is not, but that's kind of a Reed Detmers year. He's still got to find that consistency. And the ass man, who could forget Javier Assad? Just the Rangers, this year's Ranger Suarez, if you will, coming up, pulled up from a bulk relief role to start, and he's made 4 or 5 quality starts. So hopefully he can keep that energy up.
Yeah, the ass man
And
couldn't go this whole interview without mentioning him. He's a favorite on the pod.
yeah, oh, he's the man. And one more thing I'll note is that thank God Tony Gonsolin got hurt. That guy was an anchor if I've ever seen one. He's started out great, but then I don't know. It was pretty clear something went wrong. He wasn't going deep. He wasn't really striking guys out. He was just giving up a lot of hard contact. So something was wrong, and he's got TJ. So hopefully he can come back all right in a year and a half. But yeah, hopefully he can get right because he's a fun guy to watch when he's on.
The Guardians have brought in a position player to pitch in the 6th inning.
Oof.
Yeah.
Is that going to make the podcast, Cam?
Sure. Why not?
Yay. I don't know how it's going to fit in. You could probably put it in the middle of some other segment.
I could figure that out. But where were we?
Tony Gonsolin, baby.
Yeah, we're talking about Tony Gonsolin.
Gotcha. Tony Gonsolin. Yeah, no, I came close to trading for him last year, and I'm glad I didn't because it's been rough for him ever since.
Yeah, I fondly remember the 3-team deal that I made to let Andrew get Tony Gonsolin from Alex and or not from Alex and Zach from Daniel and Matt. Good times.
And I don't regret it. Zach Gallen would have been great. There's a lot of times this year where I could have used him for sure, but Bassett's been good. Terramar Johnson's just tearing it up though. So probably a deal I would do again.
Dare I say marring it up?
Yeah, if I was in the same position, like obviously now I wouldn't trade an ace away as I would like to get one. But I think Chris Bassett's won me some matchups this year, and he's been great. And while Gonsolin was good this year before he got hurt, he was definitely contributed to some wins as well. So.
Yeah, Bassett kind of struggled at the beginning, but he has really turned his season around. Yeah, it's been a good season for your pitching staff, especially in the second half here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
no, absolutely. But yeah, any other questions you had, Sahil?
Oh boy. Okay. Here's a question I have. Who is one player in the playoffs, and you could do a pitcher and a hitter if you like, and theme with the podcast that you are most looking forward to watching over our fantasy playoffs?
Oh yeah, I'm glad you clarified fantasy playoffs. Just in general or on my team?
On your team. On your team.
Oh, on my team. Well, let's see. Probably, I want to see Grayson Rodriguez tear it up. He's got a 2-start this week against Erik. He's been putting things together, so I'd love to see him have a good September. So there's the pitcher. As for the hitter, give me Bobby Witt. Bobby Witt has just been cooking. We were talking a little bit before the podcast. He's up to 28 home runs, 39 steals. Looks like a lock to go 30-40, which is just bananas. So if he can keep that up and keep powering the Sad Royals offense, he'll be a big part of my fantasy team's success. So with Grayson Rodriguez and Bobby Witt. And that as well is two guys that you can expect, unless there's some crazy offer, to be on my team for the next few years, at least.
Absolutely. No, I think those are two great players. I definitely agree with the Grayson love. I've watched most of his recent starts, and he does start today. I'm excited to see that, and he looks really legit. And Bobby Witt, the past couple months, I mean, has been on fire. So definitely two young, fun players to watch, and I totally expect him to make a big impact for your team. In these playoffs, although interestingly, Witt did not play today. He got a day off today. But hopefully he's in the lineup the rest of the days this week. I'm sure he will be. But see, I don't think I have any other questions. I'm just I think. Do you have anything, Cam? I can't think of anything.
No, that was everything I had. Andrew, do you have any last words before this playoff matchup?
Frank Mozzicato is on the block.
Oh,
okay. Petition to pause the playoffs so we can have the Frank Mozzicato bidding war, and then we can resume the playoffs. But I think that's more important.
I think it might not be a terrible idea to allow minor league trades after the deadline, just because that's allowed in the majors. And maybe Frank Mozzicato can be the first.
Oh yeah. That's an interesting proposal.
Hey, just look at his last few starts in High A. Everybody knows High A is really what tells you whether or not you're going to be good in the majors or not. I don't care about Double A, Triple A, Low A. No, High A is where it's at. Big Frank is tearing it up in the last few starts. Don't look at his first 5. Just look at the last 2 starts in High A and realize what a great prospect you're getting. So send me an ace. I'll send you Frank Mozzicato. We'll call it a deal.
All right. If anyone out there is listening, there's an offer. But
I'll make the first offer on Cam's behalf. Zach Wheeler for Frank Mozzicato.
Making offers on my behalf. I'll counter with Christian Yelich for Frank Mozzicato.
How dare you put those words into your mouth?
I'll accept that on Sahil's behalf. So call it a deal.
Oh my God. Christian Yelich will never go anywhere. Maybe for Frank Mozzicato, though. He is Frank Mozzicato after all. Or can you do the voice?
Hey, I'm Frank Mozzicato.
All right, there we go. That's the guy I want.
All right. Well, that's a wrap on Reynolds Wrap. Thank you, Andrew, for coming on, and hopefully maybe you'll be on in 3 weeks to discuss a championship.
Yeah, hope to see one of you guys in the winner's side of the bracket.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely like the opportunity to play you again. It'd be always fun to play you.
Right. this podcast is good.